Good afternoon. It's been a cool morning this morning, but it promises to be a pleasant afternoon. You know, we need rainfall desperately in this part of the country. And I just wanted to let you know that I, for one, am grateful for God's provision of the storage of good water underground in many places, including this area where we're living. That helps to mitigate the shortage of water from the heavens that we're experiencing now. That water underground is truly a blessing. As I posted in social media a few days ago, on November 4th of this year, I'll no longer be an instrument of the Kansas Secretary of State. My notary commission expires the day before that, and I'm not going to be renewing. I first became a notary, 28 or so years ago during my time in healthcare. It was a handy thing to have at that time. And even after my career in that field was over, it's been nice to have the ability to help friends, relatives, and neighbors who needed some document notarized. But there comes a time when even a good thing must end, and that time has come for me as a notary. Well, in the course of my later years and my retirement from secular work, I've discontinued or reduced several things in my life that have become more burdensome, less fulfilling, or maybe more difficult to do. For example, I no longer crawl under houses to fix water pipes, crawl in attics to run electrical circuits, or crawl under cars to change oil. My days of working in emergency medical services on the ambulance are over with. I no longer walk behind a push lawnmower, even in a small yard. And although I still drive at night, it's somewhat more of a challenge, and I don't really relish the thought of doing so anymore. Now, I still will get on the roof of my house, but now I make sure that my wife or someone else is with me when I do. I still like to do things out in the garage where I've set up my workspace, but I limit myself now more than I did some years ago regarding how much I lift or how I deal with things that could be somewhat dicey regarding my safety. I'm just not as nimble and quick as I used to be. As it is with these things, so it is with the Notary Commission. There just comes a time when it's right to shed this or that thing that one has held on to for many years. For me, the notary was something that I could not only do today for people, but it was a reminder of how things used to be, of a life in the past. I suppose that as we get older, we tend to think back perhaps a little more often to those times in the past when we were more active, more engaged, and more eager. At least I do that. And when I was growing up years ago, my grandfather lived in the same community as we did. He was in his 90s and generally in good health for his age. We would visit often, and I sometimes stayed the day at their place. I wondered then why he liked to talk about the old days so much when there was so much going on in the present age. That present age was the early to mid-1960s, and there was much happening in those days. The space race, the expansion of the peaceful use of the atom, the assassination of President Kennedy, the civil rights movement, the development of the electronic integrated circuit, the Cold War, all of that, as well as local issues, filled those days. Yet, my grandfather would much rather have talked of times in the late 1800s and early 1900s as they lived out on the prairies in Nebraska and Kansas. And I too find myself longing at times to talk with people much younger than I am about my earlier days. I'm beginning to understand my grandfather's penchant for harking back to the old days. He just wasn't that concerned about the world situation as it was then. Oh, well, he kept up with things. He knew what was going on, and he was conversant in many areas of his modern day. His mind was sharp, and he knew what was happening, but his concern wasn't so much the Iron Curtain as it was his relationship with God and the both physical as well as spiritual welfare of his family. And I believe that because he genuinely was looking forward to his transition into the eternal presence of his Creator, the things of his present day, whether good or bad, just didn't bother him that much. You know, there's a lesson in there for us. Yes, we need to be aware of our surroundings. We need to know some of the things in the world that are pressing in one way or another. We need to know because we need to be salt and light in that world, being the hands and feet of God as He redeems the creation, one act of kindness, one act of compassion, one act of forgiveness at a time. And to do that, we need to have at least some awareness of the present situation in the world. But our true longing, our true desire as Christians, should be our desire to see the face of the one who loved us to the point that He died on our behalf, making us righteous and blameless when we appear before Him. So as we gradually shed those things of the world from our lives, those things that may well have been good things, that we may well have once enjoyed or that have brought us satisfaction, we know our lives aren't becoming empty and void when we shed those things. They're just being filled with an anticipation of what is yet to come. We can recall the old days with fondness and gratitude, and we can look ahead to finishing the race and entering into the joy of the kingdom of God. Blessings.